can't figure out how to show you the PowerPoint. So Renee is going to talk through what she wanted to share, and then we'll share it electronically afterwards.
I'll send it out.
Are you going to send it to everybody?
I'll send it to my whole list. You're on the list.
Okay, great.
So I will send that out. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Renee Rader. I know that you always get the emails from me, but I don't often get a chance to talk to this group. So I'm happy that I get to talk to you today. The topic that we're going to talk about today is the communications plan for the NC Innovations waiver and the changes that are going to be happening within the waiver. And I have the benefit of seeing my own PowerPoint. But the first thing I wanted to say is I wanted to make sure that everyone knew that this was the communications plan is really a collaborative effort. We've had folks from DMA, from my team. We've had folks from DMH. We have a representative from the department's communications team. That's Dan here, my partner in crime. And also the LME.
I always get associated with crime for some reason.
And also the LME-MCOs. We've had a subcommittee that has met intermittently over the past year or so, who's helped us work on pieces of this. So as we were talking about communication, the first thing that we really needed to do is we needed to get a quick reality check for how our communication had been going so far. We sit up here and we think we're getting the information out, but we really needed to find out how that was going, who was learning, who was hearing what. And we did that in a couple ways. First of all, we did have a series of focus groups. I think they were over a year ago now, where we went out across the state and met with small groups of family members and small groups of providers to talk about some of the changes that they had experienced already and some of the changes that were sort of in view, possibly coming down the way. And we got a lot of feedback from that group in terms of how effective or not effective our communication was. We also got a lot of feedback on the listening tour with Dave Richard. We heard lots from different people about, just how they were feeling we were getting the message out and what they had heard and what they hadn't heard. We have gotten feedback from this group, obviously, and also from the local stakeholder groups. That feedback's also funneling back up to us. And then we get feedback in other forms. And I know a lot of us, well, all of us at DMA and everyone at DMH spends a lot of time in the community talking to providers, talking to other stakeholders, talking to the LME-MCOs, and we've been taking note of all the difficulties that people have had with communication. We've also been taking note of what works and what doesn't work. So we've been listening. So hard to do this without my PowerPoint behind me, but there were some general themes that we noticed as we were looking back at what we had learned. And none of this, I think, is going to come as any surprise to any of you. First of all, people thought it was hard to get information. They didn't know even where to start to find it. They didn't know who to ask. They would call somewhere and they would get passed to the next person who would pass them to the next person. Really difficult to find the information. Once you find the information, we heard that it's very hard to understand that information, that the way that we present things is not user-friendly, and we use lots of acronyms and we use lots of our own language, but it's difficult to understand. From that, we learned that people think that the system itself is not user-friendly because they're not able to get that information and they're not able to get what they need to do what they need to do. We also heard very loudly that the DHHS, the DMA, DDSAS, and the DMA websites were just useless. That's
Poor
the
Dan.
truth.
Dan, your website is useless.
No. I'm going to talk about how wonderful Dan is.
Even that is before Dan. So.
The new one or the old one?
We're going to talk about how wonderful Dan is in a few minutes. Some of you may have noticed there have been an update to the DHHS website and also to the DMHGD SAS website. They have not tackled the DMA website because it's such a monster. I got to be careful what I say because my boss is sitting next to me. But it's such a monster. So that one's going to be tackled at a later date. We heard loud and clear that because people weren't able to get the information they needed, and because they didn't understand the information that was given to them, that people have a hard time trusting the system, just because they don't have the information they need. Another thing we heard was information about grievances and appeals. People aren't aware of that information many times. They don't know how to find that information out. The information that they do get is very difficult to understand, and people often miss the opportunity to appeal or grieve something they disagree with because they don't feel they have the information they need. There was an overall lack of knowledge about Innovations Waiver Services, and I think that was the one that surprised me the most. When we were out doing the focus groups, and Ellen shaking her head no, but to me, sitting up here, it came as a surprise. When we would go out and talk to people, and they would say things like, oh, you mean my child can work and get supported employment? Or, oh, there's day programs?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just astounding to me that people didn't know which services.
There's a waiver.
Huh.
There's a waiver.
Right. Well, and that, that's another thing, and I didn't put that in my presentation, but when we did the focus groups, all of the recipients in the focus group had had a SIS evaluation, and at least half of them couldn't tell us if they had had a SIS evaluation. That was one of our questions on the list, but we made sure that everybody we picked to participate in the group had already had an assessment, and at least half of them didn't know if they had had one.
That's scary.
Let's see. They talked about goals in the individual service plans are often hard for the families to understand the way they're written, that people don't feel like they really get at what the family was trying to accomplish or the person was trying to accomplish. And we also, we already knew this, but it reinforced the fact that this lack of understanding and misunderstanding was creating a lot of fear. Not just mistrust, but fear. People are concerned that we're just going to come in and across the board cut their services. People are concerned that we're going to be less person-centered. There's just a lot of fear out there, and it's primarily because people don't have the information they need. So with our communications plan, we have a number of goals. The first one, of course, is to build understanding and prevent misunderstanding. I think that that's the best starting point. We want to reduce the barriers that are created by the communication problems. We also want to educate and inform all of the stakeholders. We want to build that trust back up, and we also want to build up and rebuild credibility with the stakeholders. And the last thing we want to do is we want to be able to create a situation where we can have informed dialogue, because we find in certain situations we will be talking with folks who are wanting to have a conversation with us about something they're not happy with or something they are happy with, but maybe they don't understand what it says in the waiver in the first place, or maybe they don't understand the rules in the first place. And so we want to create an environment where everybody has the same level of understanding, so that when we come to the table, we can have that informed discussion. And it's not, certain people sitting around the table as experts and other people sitting around the table as not having the information. We want to make sure that we're having an informed dialogue. So, okay, Ellen.
Are you all going to come down on people? Are you all going to come down to people's level, on the third grade level or below, so that self-advocates can understand this information? Or am I going to have to come up with it?
That is our goal, and we are trying. Some of the information is complicated, and certainly, we need feedback from self-advocates about how we can explain that. But our goal always is to hit that third grade level.
Well, if you need help.
Thank you, Ellen.
I am hired.
Thank you, Ellen.
You need to hire me.
It'd be non-traditional setting for volunteering.
Well, hey, you have to hire me for coffee. I work for coffee.
Yeah, I do too, Ellen.
Yeah.
I don't want to be disrespectful, but first came here, these acronyms and, these terms of art are just, I'm a lawyer too. And it was unintelligible. There's absolutely no reason to think that a normal individual can make heads or tails of this waiver. And there was a professor in our law school, because lawyers are known for writing gobbledygook and extended sentences, and it's called legalese. And the thing is, you all have an equivalent, and there's something called plain English for lawyers, and this group could really benefit from plain English for
Bureaucrats.
or simple. But it's just basic sentences that are short. I mean, LMEs and MCOs and communities, no one knows what the hell that is. And the reason they don't know they had assists is because they know someone talked to them about services, but they don't know that it's called that. And, it's only beneficial to y'all. It's not beneficial to the normal person, because it makes them feel apprehensive and also disconnected to the system. It's very foreign, it's unapproachable, and they don't know what they could get. Like, I think a cafeteria plan is awesome. And I think if it's spelled out really easily, like what these things are, with like definition page, and if you want to use your terms like, supported employment, then it has to say equals, someone goes out with your child to a job and helps them. I mean, it's just completely foreign. So unless it's written in some sort of a plain English, or there's a good page of definitions, then, it's not the people's fault. It's y'all's fault. Just
Right.
saying.
Right, and
Because it's not written at a 3rd grade level. I mean, you gotta be kidding.
it's not now. This is our plan, because we know we have to make it better.
But
And
the problem
everything
is
that
you're on the inside. So someone who doesn't know this stuff has to review it and write it, because you might think you're being clear.
Right.
But a person external to your organization will be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Just saying.
No, and I think that's a good point. Maybe we can establish some way for getting that out to folks.
Actually, that would be Dan, because Dan doesn't know.
You know,
He's
Renee,
a good sounding board for us.
here's a suggestion. We got established innovation stakeholder groups across every single MCO that have individuals that are on the waiver on those. We use ours to vet all the cardinal materials, because we cardinal don't know how to reduce that information in a way to make it more manageable. Why couldn't the state share some of that with the MCOs and get feedback that way through those local stakeholders?
That's a great idea.
From this group, and I'd augment that to say that some of them are going, like Andrea said, but even I know I'm on the Alliance one, or our group is on the Alliance one, and they're already moving ahead and doing some stuff, so, cart before the horse kind of thing. So it might be good.
You might want to reach out to your partners and make sure that they're on the same page as you.
Okay. So there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information that we need to get out there, and it seems like almost an impossible task. There's so much information that we want to offer people. But the first thing we decided is that we needed to have a set of core messages that we wanted to get out to everybody, so that they knew where we were starting from and we were all coming from the same place. And so we developed 5 key messages. The first message is about partnership, that the Department of Health and Human Services partners with people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. We also partner with providers and other stakeholders, the LME MCOs, to support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to make choices about the services and supports they receive. The second key message is that the Department of Health and Human Services is committed to person-centered planning and self-direction to promote real-life outcomes in the community. And there was some question early on about whether or not we talked about real-life outcomes, or if we tried to define those a little better. You'll see a lot of states have websites or mission statements that talk about, helping people to live and love and work in their communities. And we chose to be a little bit more open about that because we recognize that each person is going to have a different goal, a different outcome for what they experience in the community. So we left that open. We strive to provide a quality system that is fair, practical, and easy to understand. So we're striving, we're not there. We want to ensure that people with intellectual and developmental disability have equal access to due process and appeal rights. And that's not to say that they didn't, but that's in recognition of the fact that without that communication and without that understanding, we're creating barriers that don't need to exist. And so we want to make sure that folks know what their rights are and that they have as much access to appeals and grievances as anybody else would.
The MCOs are supposed to start using that letter, that, like,
Well, so that's another topic, and that's a topic for another meeting, maybe for the DWAC, because where we left that was that the DWAC was going to send it out and request it of them. So I don't know what the follow-up from that
okay,
was.
well, I was just making sure. Okay,
But that was the plan, yes, but I
I'll follow
can't.
up with Margaret.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Renee, on that idea of grievances particularly, how do we file a grievance with DMA against the LMEMCO?
Or with DMA about DMA.
I don't need you to file a grievance to know that you hate me, it's fine.
No, I'm really saying that from a consumer standpoint, because you can't do that. You can't
So
vote.
Or maybe grievance is too strong a word, just complaint. Like, I'm trying to get this information from Smokey and they're stonewalling me. Could you call them and say, stop stonewalling her? I mean, just that kind of simple, how can I file a complaint? Because they're just sitting on their hands.
So the answer to your question is it depends. I mean, so for something like that, you can call us and we usually try to facilitate that kind of a thing.
But see, that information isn't on your web. There isn't a clear place that I can go to DMA or DHHS and say,
Got it.
That's what I
We
mean.
can do that.
Right. You know, even if it says talk to the DWAC.
Gotcha.
It doesn't say that now, so that would be an improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Mary on this one. I mean, it is very hard for, and I'm speaking mama hat on right now, Trillian hat on. It is very difficult for families, mine included, to know how to file a complaint with DMA about a DMA issue. When it may be the MCO, it may be a DME vendor, it may be
true.
an EPSDT issue with a DME vendor. It is impossible to figure out how to file a complaint with you all.
I think that we can address that relatively easily. Dan's scribbling furiously.
I actually filed a complaint on that.
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any process. You can't do it on the website, you can't do it in person.
That's not-
You can't do it on the phone.
Yeah, for you.
And the MCO can't do that with DMA either, by the way, about a DME issue. There's no way for anybody to file a complaint. It doesn't, I mean, we can email Kathy, I suppose. God bless you. Or one of the other staff will know, but it might not even be in your lane, right, that we're emailing about.
Well, and when it isn't, we usually will send it over to the right shop. But I mean, a formal process like what you're, I mean, yes,
Like what I have at Trillian.
we absolutely can put a more,
Or like what providers are required to have. Because they're accredited.
well,
True.
because, there's always the grievances and appeals for those kinds of services. If it's a problem with a policy and you want to speak to it in that fashion, I mean, there is a section and we do need to respond, but it's not always within our, because if you're going to change a service definition and all the work that goes behind that is not an immediate kind of a process, there should at least be an acknowledgement, though.
Well, or how do you file a complaint with you about one of your vendors? There's no way to do that. There's nothing on your website that says how to file a complaint with DMA about a DMA vendor, a direct vendor.
That's like a bigger issue that we might want to take back to.
It's not at the department's website either.
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
It's not in anybody's
Dan to
website.
maybe take back and see if we wanted. She's right. I don't know what that process.
I mean, it's not like you'd be overwhelmed.
We'll have something in August soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's good feedback. We'll take that back and try to see if we can't do something with it. I mean, you're
But
right.
at the end of the waiver, isn't there going to be a section that says basis, process for appeals and grievances?
Yes, but that's for waiver appeals and grievances. So she's saying that if there's a problem with Smokey, I mean, yeah, you can call me and I can try to facilitate that process, but there's no formal.
Well,
It's gotta be done in 30
Mary
days.
Short can call you because Mary Short knows you.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Joe Blow, whoever out
right.
here, has no
Right.
idea who Kathy Nichols is.
And you don't want me
Nothing
to,
do with Smoky Mountain.
Right.
I mean, I'll put your name out.
Even if they did on the website, and just to further that conversation, even if they did on the website and even had nothing to do with Smoky Mountain, it had to do with VO.
Right.
We don't have a formalized, here's the form, here's the process, here's the time frame. I mean, we're supposed to show good customer service, and I really do think my staff tries to very hard.
Absolutely.
But as far as a formalized thing of what you're speaking of, I think we need to take that back, because I don't think we have one across the division.
You used to have the customer service, consumer affairs section.
Well, they still do DMH,
Right, so.
but that's
that kind of
different
is kind of
too, yeah.
confusing on what's their role, what would be another role.
Mm, yes.
And just where does that live, how do I get to that? Because all the top 5 issues that we get complaints or concerns around are frankly customer service and what they're being told by the MCO access staff. They may know, but think
And
they
we do,
know.
I mean, I can probably get 20 calls, I mean, so, and we do try to follow up, and yeah, sometimes somebody says something wacky, and if it wasn't the MCO, it was CSC, but formally, right, I got you, that's good, that's helpful.
In establishing a formal system, I would encourage you from a time and cost-saving standpoint, within the umbrella of partnership, to also have a companion informal system where people should start.
Right.
If you can avoid a formal complaint with a telephone conversation, you save a lot of time and frustration.
It's not just us though, because like to Cindy's point, I mean, DME plays a role, for instance, which has nothing to do with us, so, but.
You're funny.
So, okay, thank you.
Back to the PowerPoint.
Okay, that you can't see, but I can.
Yeah.
We just put number one.
Oh, I should go stand behind you.
We just.
Oh, you want your face on YouTube, not your PowerPoint?
That's right.
Okay.
Remember I told you earlier, people
Yeah.
looking over my shoulder.
Oh, that's right, sorry.
Okay.
Ah.
A couple things. What we have now, we have a website that we know doesn't work for anything, but we have done a couple things to improve that, a couple.
You're
So
funny.
first of all, we've cleaned it up, and we've taken all of the information about NC Innovations, and we have put it in one place on the website.
Where?
Well, and that's assuming you can find it, but I'm just telling you.
I need to find it.
I'll send you the link.
Okay.
I'll send everybody the link.
Google Innovations eventually pops up.
Yeah, if you Google NC Innovations, you'll go to that page.
I did, but I still can't find it.
I'm gonna keep populating
And I still couldn't find it.
Well, and I think that part of, remember again, that depending on what we do with legislation and where the division sits, come
Right.
September, I think that we were probably one of the last divisions to even try to look at cleaning up some of the other stuff.
Right, so,
And I'm looking at Dan, I think that's correct, though, that you wouldn't do us first until they figure out what they're gonna do with us.
Well, I don't know if it's that as much as that there's just so, I mean, DMA is so large.
Also true.
As much as anything.
Monster.
They've been working on this as long as all the other divisions. It's the amount of pages, I forget how many thousand pages. We have over 60 content owners in DMA. Now you know why I laugh, no, I'm kidding. It's a massive undertaking.
Okay.
we've got 15 minutes, so I'm gonna try and blow through the rest of
Oh,
this.
okay, pardon me.
Okay. So we took up all the outdated information we could find, and I've been trying to, as hard as possible, get information up there as soon as we have it. So you'll see that it's updated more regularly than it's been in the past. It's still not perfect, but it's getting updated more regularly. But the good news is, we know that doesn't work, and so what we are working on now is a separate web page for NC Innovations. It will be separate from the DMA website, it will be separate from the DMH website, it will be its own place in a neutral territory, with the goal of having that be something that's easy to find, easy to read, easy to understand, with everything written at the third grade level, but also, or lower, but also links embedded within there so that people who are interested in some of the more technical information and want to take a deeper dive into that, they would have the ability to find that information as easily as they would anywhere else. There's going to be a couple of pages within that website. We're certainly going to list our key messages up there because that's the one thing we want to make sure that everybody hears loud and clear and that we're starting from that same place. We're going to have a sort of what you need to know page that is just basic information about the innovations waiver, that describes some of those acronyms we were talking about, that talks about, who's eligible for NC Innovation, what is an LME MCO, how do you find your LME MCO? So that very basic what you need to know information. We're going to have a page with updates, which will include things like the webinars or any kind of information that we put out there, the webinar schedule, all of those things will be posted on the updates page. We'll also have a page that talks about the current NC Innovation services. And the reason that we decided to do that was because, first of all, we had heard that people weren't so familiar with what the NC Innovations waiver offers now, and we wanted to put that in a place where people could see that. But also, as we're talking about making changes to the NC Innovations waiver, we want to give people a framework for understanding those changes. Because you're not going to know what changed or how this is better if you don't know where we started from. So we will have a page dedicated to that. And then finally, there will be a contact page where we can include the information for sort of the informal discussion about complaints and concerns before it goes to a formal grievance process. But we'll also have in there, we have a telephone line available, the telephone line that people used for public comment. That line is still open and people are still welcome to, and we encourage people to call and leave us voicemail messages. And then we also have the email address, the same email address where people left public comments as well. That will remain open and will continue to be reviewed indefinitely.
Yeah, let's just let her finish, and then we'll finish up with all the questions at the end. Is that okay?
I need you to mail out information to self-advocates and make sure that self-advocates know, all the self-advocates in the whole North Carolina know where it is.
Okay.
Because parents, Mary's great about getting information out, but we don't have parents in every MCO like Mary.
Right. Okay. So Dan's writing that down too. We need to make sure that once the website goes up, that we will have a place that it will be advertised loud and clear in as many ways as possible so that everybody knows.
And we need to make sure if parents don't understand how to get on the web, then there's a place that they can go to the library to look it up.
Okay.
Or something.
Yeah.
Or you can call and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So
enough.
How many more slides do you got?
A couple.
Well, sorry, but
No, I just want to know how much longer you have.
10 minutes.
You're gonna share with them, give them a lockdown.
So Dan wants to make sure that I share with you that we are in the process of getting that website mocked up. I guess that's the technical term. Once we get a test site for that, we can actually bring that to this group and everybody can take a look at it and give feedback and we can talk about what that looks like, and assuming that I can get the technology to work.
Yeah, we won't do it here.
We won't do it here. Somewhere else. But yeah, so we'll be able to take a look at that together, and it will be in test mode until we're satisfied that it's what we want it to be, and then we'll publish that. We are trying to move quickly, but
maybe DWAC too.
Maybe DWAC too. We want to move quickly, but we don't want to move so quickly that we miss the mark. We are also working on things like a newsletter. The newsletter's been hard because it seems like as soon as we get the newsletter written, the information is outdated.
Correct.
But we are working on that. We're going to work on things like flyers and FAQs and other things to put on the website, again, that are easy to understand in small chunks of information that you can just grab. And we're also going to put the webinars. We're going to continue to post the webinars themselves, the recorded version, and also the PowerPoints as soon as those are available. Another thing that we're doing is we need to make sure that we're giving consistent messages. Oh my gosh, it's so weird. Consistent messages across the board. And one of the things that we know is that folks from DMA and DMH and from the LME MCOs go out regularly and talk to different groups of people. I know I myself probably go to 3 different meetings a week, every single week, where I'm giving updates on the same information. So what we are going to do is we're going to create some bullet points 2 or 3 times a month that we're going to share among all DMA staff, DMH staff, and the LME MCOs, so that when they are out talking to people, we are all providing those same updates, those same consistent points, so that we're giving the same message. Let's see. Oh, and we'll also send those out to you guys. I wish my PowerPoint was up there, but we'll also send those out to you all because this group and the people that I've added to my email distribution list have been phenomenal at getting information out. Phenomenal. The first webinar, the only place I sent that out to was this group, and we had 147 people call into that webinar. So you guys have been doing a great job. So we'll send those points out to you as well. Yeah.
Why does the webinar have to be at a specific date and time? Why can't it always be accessible?
It is. It's on the web now, and it's accessible.
Okay, so although it says August 20th at X time.
That's when it was recorded.
Right. So that's
Okay,
what
so
it was.
it's always accessible.
Yes, it's on there. You can
It
watch
takes
it.
us a couple days to get them up afterward, but yeah, they'll live up there.
Yep.
So it'll be up there Monday, right?
I have not gotten the recording yet, but if we get it Monday, it'll be up Monday.
Okay.
Oh,
We're
I
gonna
have
post
it.
as soon as we get the recording.
We're not as quick as me.
So
I just haven't uploaded it to my YouTube site yet, but I have it.
Like a library, you know.
So, yeah, and it'll be up there. We're going to continue to offer the webinars. We have a very aggressive webinar scheduled for over the next couple of weeks. We're going to cover topics like the supports intensity scale for person-centered planning. We're going to try to demystify that a little bit. We're going to talk about individual budgets and choice. There will be one on care coordination, one on the rollout strategies, how we're going to implement all of this, because, you know, switch flips on January 1, what happens? We're going to talk about due process and appeal rights. We have some attorneys, the department attorney and the AG's office. They're going to do the webinar on the due process and appeal rights. We're going to have another webinar on service authorizations. What happens when I request a service? What happens to my plan? You know, what's going on in UM? People know UM, but they don't know what happens back there. And we also have a webinar scheduled in December that right now is just a placeholder. But as we get more feedback, maybe from you guys and anybody else about information that we've missed, that we haven't covered in the webinars, we'll be able to add that on to the end. Let's see. We are trying to get ourselves on every single training conference schedule from here until the end of the year and beyond. And we've done some of that, and we're on the schedule for like NC Tide. I presented at DWAC this week. Other things we're going to be doing, I'm trying to move fast now, we're going to be doing a series of community forums, like the listening sessions, in October, November. We're going to be getting together in the next couple of days to start hashing out some of the details of that, and then we'll work with our LME MCO partners. We're hoping that we'll be able to involve them more in this set of community forums. The last time they helped us out with sort of behind the scenes stuff, but this time we're hoping to incorporate them more into our presentation and into the question taking. And I think that is it. I will say that we are already thinking about how we're going to move beyond January 1st, because this doesn't all stop January 1st. We're going to continue the things we've been doing. When there's changes, we're going to continue to make sure they're posted. Webinars seem to be going very well. But we're also working on how we're going to continue to keep that feedback loop after January 1, because we know that after that date, things aren't going to be perfect and rosy and wonderful forever. So we're trying to figure out at this point how we're going to continue to get that feedback and incorporate that in a meaningful way. So that's my presentation.
The webinars, will you send out a schedule and the times, and then we can pass that out?
Yes, I'm just waiting for final approval, and I should be ready to send that out.
Like one, nice.
Yep, it is.
Good.
And I'm looking at the boss lady, so hopefully we'll get final
Send it
approval
out.
soon. Perfect.
I always wondered why there wasn't an 800 number that we could call into when we had those communication bulletins or implementation updates that happened years ago. And you could go on the website and look at the IUs or the communication bulletins. And why can't that just be recorded at an 800 number that people who don't have internet access and aren't going to be able to run to the library, I don't know why you all think that's possible, but so that people can just call in, self-advocates can dial in to the 800 number and get the update. And because granted, most of us are using cell phones, so you're not really paying for that 919 phone call, but not everybody is.
Right.
Well, we should be able to double check that, but on a webinar, it's only for the visual part. You have to dial in for the audio part. So let's see if we can,
Which typically is an 800
somebody
number.
It is an 800,
Right.
but I think you're
Yeah, it
talking
is.
about other kinds
Just
of
right,
updates.
because not everybody has access to the internet. You can't just keep putting it on the internet.
Right. So like those
Or
updates.
make the LME MCOs print it all out and put it in their lobby.
But like those updates that we're talking about doing, a couple times a month, if we could have a 1-800 number that people could call in and listen to the update.
Right, or even if it's got to be on the 919, area code system or whatever, and it's like, oh, well, here's it, for innovation waiver information, push 16. Here are the service for community living, push 3. For day supports, push 4.
So we'll look at that. That's a good idea. I thought your hand was up.
It was earlier. You answered.
Any other communications type issues or comments right now? 4 minutes? 3 minutes? We're 3 minutes early. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good
I
weekend.
just have one question, just one question.
Okay.
One question. Are you going to do a consumer-related handbook? There was some talk about that earlier, specific to the innovation.
You mean
waiver
instead of
the
the-
state of Connecticut has, for example, which is wonderful.
We can.
I mean, it really educates this different kind of thing, a technical manual, which is a technical manual, but maybe a consumer handbook for innovations waiver that is specific for recipients of that, which also includes a consumer orientation to being on it.
Do they have a copy of it?
By Jerry first, to be honest, but.
Do they have that posted online?
Yeah, Connecticut has it posted for
Okay,
theirs.
I'll find it.
Absolutely wonderful. And
Okay.
it has little consumer snippets of people getting supported employment, what does that mean, and how it changed so-and-so's life. It sort of tells the story that goes with the service, so you can really understand what it's all about.
Excellent.
That's one of the things we align.
Excellent. Okay.